Welcome to the Connectable podcast.
The Connectable podcast starts in 3, 2, 1.
I noticed that your guest on your podcast this week was Cody Allen. And we actually have an episode with, because we do another podcast called Character Combine. And he was our guest last week. So his episode for us is dropping Thursday. So the timing of that was so weird. Awesome. Yeah. There's this weird like podcast circle of life going on right now. It's kind of cool.
I know. I just feel like everyone's doing, I feel like to do podcasts right now is like kind of like the whole COVID experience. It's kind of like, how do you give yourself value without really being there in the moment, you know? And I feel like this is like the easiest way to promote what we got going on and also promote other people, whether it be like active people or just people who can give an insight on their life or people that can add value to your life, you know?
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely. That's a good way to start the podcast too. So before we keep going, I'm going to let you guys in on who's the guest today on the Connectable podcast. Today we have the owner of BxActiv, Paul Pearcey. What's going on, man?
How's it going, man?
Good. I'm actually wearing one of your shirts right now. It's one of the
Dude, it's the weirdest thing.
Oh, look at that. We're wearing the same.
We're literally wearing the same thing. I think I saw that. I was like, no way. That's so awesome.
That's awesome. Deb, do you have a shirt?
And guess what? I feel like a jackass because I don't have any. I have no logo. I think this is Lululemon, actually.
Hey, they're a good brand. That's true
Sorry.
too. So, no, don't even worry about it.
So, well, we're glad to have you on the show, man. I feel like, so we typically with this podcast, we start off by letting people know how we're connected to our guests because it's called Connectable. And our whole goal is to get our audience connected with our guests connected with our audience. And then hopefully in a roundabout way, everybody gets connected to each other. But we don't like personally have a connection with you. I mean, I kind of stumbled across your brand a couple of years ago. I think it was when we started our other podcast and we started following different people. And as you get more connected with Sacramento, obviously you start seeing things pop up and your brand happened to be one of them. And I just loved, the clothing you put out. I love the community that you have of, people that kind of buy into the BxActiv brand. So it's pretty simple. That's how we know you. We actually just met for the first time tonight. So it's pretty simple.
I know, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. And I have to say this, you just opened, I don't know how recently you did this, but you have a physical store now next to one of my favorite my favorite Mexican food restaurant. La Placita. It's the best, man. So I don't know how you have an active clothing wear next to that place because
oh my gosh,
it's brutal, right?
It pushes me to like lift or be more active because then I can make an excuse to go over there and eat a lot. And literally it's like a love or hate. It's like, oh, are you hungry? It's like, yeah, well, we can get La Placita. And then after a while, you're like, oh my God, like, are you hungry? Like, oh yeah, my pocket's hungry. Like after all that, like,
right.
It gets kind of crazy, but
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I love that place. So once I saw you guys opened up a shop there, I'm like, that's perfect. I may have to make a trip over there one of these days. But
yeah, that's awesome, man.
So let me ask you this, man. Like, how did BxActiv start? How did you kind of start down that road of being an entrepreneur and a businessman? Like, just take us down that road a little bit.
Yeah. So I actually started clothing in 2015 when I just turned 21, almost 22. And I did another brand. It was called Brosthetics. And that was like bros being athletic. And it was back when all the gym was the hype. And that's when Gymshark was growing and LitFit and all that stuff. And I wanted a brand that I can promote myself as like a lifter, a gym person, you know what I mean? I didn't really like what I was wearing, so then I decided, hey, I'm gonna start my own brand. But then that kind of came into effect by just having, I don't know, just trying to throw out a t-shirt there just because, you know what I mean, having different designs that really wasn't like what I really want. I just wanted to have the name out there, you know what I mean, because it's mine. Like, that's really cool. Like, this might be a cool color. This is a cool design. Let me just throw it on here, you know? Sure. And that kind of evolved in from just like, after a while, like when lifting doesn't become a passion, it becomes more of like a burden. Like, you have to lift to support your brand, or you have to lift to do this because it's like, you have to do it. You lose a little bit of a passion in it. You know what I mean? I didn't want to lift. I wanted to be active. And then when I talked to one of my mentors up in Medford, I've been on a side note, I've like been working for Dutch Bros. I don't anymore for like 9 years. So a lot of the people that helped mentor me were like the people that were in Dutch Bros. And I talked to the guy that started it, and I talked to a couple other people, and they're like, dude, if you're not about what you're trying to make or sell, then you shouldn't even do it. And I was like, well, I really like to be active. I was like, well, just change your brand name to BxActiv. And I was like, really? Like, that's kind of cool. Like, BxActiv, how would we change it? How would we do it? And then the whole symbol or the logo isn't BxActiv, it's B and then the X and active. And the X is kind of like that conjoining figure to where like the B is you, X connects to the active symbol of it. So there's like BxActiv is BxActiv. So then we were able to trademark that and get everything all set up. And from there, it just opened a whole variety of things, you know, like women couldn't really like rock bro aesthetics, you know what I mean? It just didn't sound right. It didn't feel right, you know? And then people would always be like, oh, and one of the funniest things, it was just a peeve of mine. It shouldn't be like a big deal, but they'd be like, ooh, bros with the ticks. And I'm like, oh God, like if they can't even pronounce my brand, like I don't even want to promote it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then now be like, oh, BxActiv or BxActiv. I was like, yeah, like BxAV. It's something easy to remember, something that people can relate to, because a lot of people just want to be active. And that kind of goes into term with not just lifting, but also hiking, surfing, swimming, drawing, whatever you do in your community to be active. Like what we're doing right now, we're being active in the podcast world. You know what I mean? Like that all connects to one thing. So when we started doing that, it changed to where now I can have a whole outlet of stuff I want to promote. And then now I can connect with other people that wants to live that active lifestyle, you know? So then fast forward from March 2018 till now, we did everything in our garage until about June 2020 of last year, literally June. And then one day I was like, you know what, like there's no way I'm going to scale this to how I want it to be unless I step forward. So, and then move up. So one of my other mentors, you probably know him. His name's Brian Nabavi. He owns Till You Collapse, TYC. He has this huge motto. His biggest saying is like, there's enough people for everyone for the clothing company. So he's never like, he'll always root for me to grow, and I'll always root for him to grow, no matter what level in our life we are, because we always want to root for the next person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, warehouse was the biggest thing I've ever done. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to spend. And right now I'm thinking about like, oh, I don't want to spend like $700 to like start a warehouse. And I'm thinking in my head is like, that was the best decision I've ever done. And if anybody wants to start a brand, when you're ready in the moment, or not even when you're ready to take the leap of faith to like go full in on your brand, like the warehouse is the biggest thing, because that just shows to where you start small and you can expand into something bigger, you know? So we were able to expand and with like, you know how it goes, like, or a fish is in like a small tank, it's not going to grow. You put in a bigger tank, it likes to grow, more room, more freedom, more creative freedom. So we just kind of kept doing that to where people started seeing different things, and it made it more relatable when you actually have a physical piece or physical place in Sacramento. I couldn't really call myself like a brand for Sacramento if I wasn't really putting myself into Sacramento, you know? So then when we got this warehouse, dude, it was just like grind season every single day, 8 to 12 hours a day, going and going and going, to finally things started to work out better. You know what I mean? Like, you know how businesses grow though. It feel like the more you put into it, the more you have to take out of it. So it's like, it didn't really feel like it was growing, but then you could go back to your numbers and all that stuff and be like, wow, like this was the biggest change in my life. You know what I mean? So now we're in 2021. We signed a deal with another brand. I can tell you that in a second. But now we're in the whole mode of like, I'm not doing my day job anymore. I quit about 2 weeks ago, actually. So now awesome. I'm doing, right? The hustle for 6 years to finally be able to do what I want to do. So then now I'm full-time BxActiv and then full-time Local Humans. I'll explain that in a little bit, to where now I'm working fully out of my office every single day, trying to grow my own brand, and with this company too as well. So it's been a blessing. It's something that I hope everyone can experience if they have like a passion in their life and they really want to not work that, in quotes, 9 to 5. They want to work what they want to do and be very passionate about it and dream about it. Like, I never thought it'd be possible at 27 years old to be able to take that leap of faith, but I've just been taking the leap of faith since I got that warehouse, and it has been a blast. It's been the best thing I've ever done.
That's awesome.
Great.
Okay, so you started off with, it started in 2015, right? That's what the year you said. Okay, yeah. I'm just take us back a little further, like how. I'm just like, just to tell those out there, like, what if someone's listening who's like, oh my gosh, that's what I want to do. How did you start that? Like, where did that idea come from? Like, what's your background of like being active? Like you said, lifting was in there, right? So take us back a little further.
So I always grew up as just, a smaller kid, you know what I mean? I was like 90 pounds, like wet. And what I wanted to do one day, I was like, you know what, like, I'm just kind of tired of just being like the smallest person in the room. So I started lifting weights, you know, and then through that, I saw kind of progression. And then through progression, I just kind of saw what I was wearing one day. And I was like, dude, I'm wearing like these baggy pants, this cutoff shirt that says Hanes on it. Like, I don't like this, you know what I mean? So then from there, from not really loving what I looked like to finally being in a place to where I could feel more confident, but then not loving what I was wearing. That's where it kind of transitioned to being like, oh, cool, let me just start a brand. You know what I mean? Like in my head, my 21-year-old head, I'm like, oh, this would be easy. I can just like wear a t-shirt, promote it, and then a bunch of people are going to buy it. And then you come to realize that there's no easy way starting a brand. You know what I mean? Like, it took me a couple of years to figure that out, but sooner or later when it became reality instead of a hobby, that's when you kind of had to flip the switch and be like, okay, this isn't just for you. Now you're doing something bigger than what you really initially planned it to be, you know?
Right.
Yeah, for sure. At what point did you realize, you know what, I think I have something here with this BxActiv brand?
You know what's funny? It's like, I want to say that when I started in March 2018, I was super stoked, but you can never really be fully invested in something if you are like kind of working a day job. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
I'd work there for a year, and honestly, like, best job ever, but I would work there for a year. I'd be tired. Then I would try and do like print t-shirts in my garage, and it just didn't feel like it was a business. It felt like a hobby. You know what I mean?
Sure.
If I could put like a timestamp, like in June, July 2020, when I started that warehouse, is when I knew it could be real. It could be something, you know, because a lot of people, like, they want to support you as your friend. You're like, oh man, like, let me go buy a t-shirt. Let me go help you out in the garage. You know what I mean? But like, how much further do you need to go to where it starts to feel like something real? You know what I mean? And then once you can like take that with the community, and then you're like, oh wow, like the community sees you, you're in here, you're fully invested. It almost makes to where like your dreams become like actual reality. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And I guess that's what I was getting to is there must have been a point where, you know, people outside of your friends and family, you know, some random person's like, hey, how do I get more connected with BxActiv? Or, hey, where can I buy your stuff? I mean, that must have been a really cool feeling. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, dude, it's so cool. And like, I'm like 2 or 3 miles away from the Excel Wellness Center.
Yeah.
I'm off of like Fair Oaks, and
Sure.
every time I go there now, there's at least one person wearing BxActiv. And the funny thing is, like, I don't even know who these people are. And that's when I know, it's like, hey, like, if people are getting this and I have no idea who they are, that's when it's not like that make or break moment, but it's just such a surreal moment to where like there's somebody that's not your friend, that's not your family, purely buys it because they like it. You know what I mean? And then like sometimes I won't even, because they don't know who I am, I'll come up to them and be like, dude, what brand is this? Like, oh, it's BxActiv or BxAV. Is like, I got it from a buddy told me about it, so I bought it online, or like I got it from CalFit, and then I'm like, dude, that's awesome. Then just not see them again. Like, I don't have to be like, oh yeah, that's my brand, you know?
Yeah.
I just love knowing that people enjoy the clothing without me having to either entice them or having to be my friend. You know what I mean? So
Right. That's
yeah,
awesome.
that's so awesome.
Yeah. What would you say was the most challenging part of like just starting all that, and like what's your favorite part about it? Just take us through all the like emotional ups and downs, I guess, because being an entrepreneur and doing all that stuff, that's really hard. Like I remember,
oh my gosh.
I remember talking to Crystal Rose, Josh, on the Combine podcast, and how she went through her ups and downs of starting her clothing line. She's got a clothing line called Rebellia. So just take us through the ups and downs of the challenges and just the exciting parts of all that.
Gosh, if I didn't have my girlfriend to like talk me out of things when I was just in my head, I don't know where I'd be, literally, because I'd be like, oh, can I afford this? Can I do this? And at some point you just have to have somebody to tell you, just screw it, just do it. You know what I mean? Because had I not take that leap of faith, and I feel like if I had to go by maybe not most exciting, but the most pivotal moment, which should probably be the top 5 most exciting things through BxActiv, is when I got that warehouse, that feeling of like, wow, like I fully separated my home with my brand, and now I'm actually doing something. That's when, like, that moment, you know that you do have something. That was one of like the most surreal moments ever. It was just super cool. Another moments that I really enjoy, and this is kind of going back like 2019, 2020, before like all this COVID hit, was going to these fitness expos. They were the funnest things I've ever done, because we would pack up all our gear, and I would take like 5 or 6 people. We'd all match in the same exact t-shirts, and then we'd just be a team. And we go to a completely foreign place that nobody knows about BxActiv, and then try and promote the brand. And then a lot of people are like all for it. And then when you see people you have never met in your whole entire life through like these expos and trade shows, and like, oh, I love the t-shirts, I'll buy this. And then you see them the next trade show, like, oh, dude, how's your brand going? Those moments right there are like, they have to be one of my favorites. And it's just so sad that we don't have another one until like June, July. And it's been like a full year since we've been able to do one of those, that I feel a little piece of me is just like, man, like I can't reach out to the people that I've saw those last 2 years, you know? So having to do those expos, having the warehouse, those are like the 2 key factors or key things that have really been the highlights of, I guess, BxActiv. And then the third one, I think this is the top, is when I was able to partner with a company called Local Human, which is another brand that I'm working with, to finally be able to say, hey, you know what, like this is full time. I'm going to do clothing, and then I could stop my day job, like making coffee and doing that, and then fully invest myself 200-300% into my brand and this brand. So I guess it wasn't top 5. Those are the top 3 moments. The scariest moments ever, I feel like the scariest moments ever is whenever I have to do a custom drop, and then you see those bills and credit cards. You're like, you just spent $10,000 in 1 month just to like make your stock and all that stuff. You're like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe I spent $10,000, you know, like I just did so much. And realistically, I feel like in a brand, it wouldn't be crazy in the long run, but you have to think of it this way. It's an investment. You're not spending $10,000 on a car to like just have a car to make payments in it. You're spending $10,000 to make $50,000. And that's like the hardest thing that had to wrap around my head, is like, hey, you're going to have debt for a little while. And for people who want to start a business, you are going to have a debt for a while. Like I've been doing this for 6 years, and I still haven't taken anything out of my company because I want to see it grow. But now I just feel like this year, now that I'm fully invested, I get to finally reap the benefits of having to grind, do all those like scary orders to make sure that I have stock to be able to make these things too as well. So if I had to go by most favorite thing, LA, the expos, doing the warehouse, and the scariest thing is spending money, but then realizing that I'll be getting it back through the company. Those are like those key pivotal moments that made me feel like an actual business owner.
Yeah. I bet, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I imagine that once you, like you said, that scary moment when you just realize, okay, this amount that I just spent is crazy. And then I imagine that when it's the day of the drop, right? For that specific collection or that group of clothing you're dropping, I imagine you're just sitting at your laptop, just like refreshing.
Dude,
Yeah.
Literally like this. I have like I had my MacBook. I had 2 screens up with like my analytics, where the people are buying. It's kind of creepy, honestly, the way I was doing it. I don't want to be creepy, but I was like, analytics, where's buying it from? This are the orders. And all of a sudden you would hear it. And then like some drops, you won't really hear anything. And you're like, well, you know what? I just spent this, but you still have your stock. So never, for people who do this things, like it's a learning process. Like just know you'll have stock. You're not losing the money. You're just holding it for another time. You know what I mean? But then some of these other drops, you're like, oh my gosh, it's going crazy, which pays off all the other stock. You know what I mean? Right. So then you get these trends and you're like, okay, cool. This was awesome for this. This wasn't good. What do we need to do? What you have to still stay true to like what you believe in. Like I always tell everyone, like I'm never going to just make something that's generalized to the public. Ooh, everyone would like this. You know what I mean? I want to make something that myself and my team likes first. So that way I can build a niche brand to where everyone that likes my stuff becomes more in tune to what BxActiv actually is. Because if I made something that everybody likes, then I'm no different than any other brand. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. This one is like, I'm going to have a niche brand where my team loves it. It still looks hype, and it's something I think is cool, to where when somebody else like you buy the t-shirt because you liked it and you thought it was cool and you're supporting your community, I get people like you guys coming into the community and supporting BxActiv. It's a lot better than saying, well, that one's kind of cool. Like, I like the design. I'm way more focused on the fit and the feel of each article of clothing rather than the design. The design just kind of helps bring the hype and the things that I like, to where when I wear it, I'm like very confident, very comfortable, you know?
Sure. And I'm glad you said that too, because, something we talked about on our last episode was creativity and passion. And we talked about how you have to be obsessed with whatever your passion is. And then we also, one of our previous guests, Zach Zlatic, he's a filmmaker. He was saying that same thing. Is like, when you're invested in something, when you're passionate about something, you're not truly passionate unless you obsess over the smallest details. So for like you, it's the fit, it's the blend of the shirt that you're making, it's the cut of it, it's the color, it's the design, all that stuff. And it sounds like that's the very reason why you're doing this full time now, is because you're obsessed with all the smallest details, which is cool. So I'm glad you said that, because I think sometimes, you know, and I'm not an entrepreneur, but I think sometimes people that get in that business think that, you know, like you said before, you can just kind of do it and things will just kind of work out. But it really is a grind. And if you're not obsessed with it, you're probably not going to make it.
Exactly. And for example, like, I don't like neon colors, so you would never see BxActiv wear neon. You know what I mean? Like, there might be other people that love neon, but I'm just not going to make it because it's not something I would wear. And if I wouldn't wear it, I will never make it for my company. That's just fake. You know what I mean? You can't be a fake company promoting, ooh, I love this t-shirt just for the general masses, but then you won't wear it yourself. That's just so weird to me. And I know that brands do that. And I just wonder why they want to do that when they have the opportunity to be so creative and then so different than everybody else, to where once you make that niche market, people go into it. You know what I mean? Like, look at Yeezy and Kanye. Like, Kanye is the most absurd person when it comes to like designs and stuff like that. But he was so passionate about what he wanted to be made, and he made it so hype that now everybody likes it. You know what I mean? It's because he was so passionate about that. I don't want to be the Kanye of clothing, obviously. I want to be myself. You know what I mean? But I want to be able to, I know, right? I want to be able to make things that are creative in my mind, that my team loves, to where when somebody else grabs it, I'm almost considering you part of my team. It's like, hey, you bought into me, like, you're part of the team. You know what I mean? And that creates such a cool culture. And like, I want to create like a BxActiv culture around this area. I always talk local. Local could kind of mean anything, but for me, like, local to me is Sacramento. Like, I've been focusing so heavy on that. Like, my birthday is 9/16. You know what I mean? Like, what are the odds of that?
That's crazy.
That. So then I can connect on a whole, I can connect on a whole different way, you know? But local could mean anything to you. It can be wherever you're at, like your family, your hometown, that localization. But for me, like, Sacramento is local, and I want to bring like my niche brand to the people of Sacramento, and then hopefully just branches out more nationally, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, like that was one of our questions for you, was how important is to build a community around your brand. But it sounds like you just said it, you know, it just kind of, you know, you cater to the people around you, but in a sense that it's your style. Like you said, you're not going to wear something like, oh, I think people will like this, so I'm going to make this. No, that doesn't make any sense, because like you said, then it's like they might as well, you know, go to, I don't know, a department store or whatever, what have
Target. Like, get something at Target. It's so general. Everybody loves Target, you know?
Yeah. So again, just go off just a little bit deeper, like how important it is to you to build a community around your brand, and why you think it's helpful, and why like, how has it helped you?
Oh, I just think the community is the biggest thing for a brand. You know what I mean? Like, so you start with the creativity and you make something that you like, and then you promote it out to community. If the community doesn't like it, I get it, but a lot of the community will support local brands too as well. And it's so cool, especially around these times too. Like, local is everything. And I think it's something that, like, if you haven't hopped on that in the moment, like, you should, because the local community, wherever you're at, they're very supportive. You know what I mean? Because now, like, there's opportunity to where they might not see your brand really, because they would just kind of go Target, Walmart, wherever. But then now that you're local and all this pandemic and everything's kind of happening and business are shutting down, they want to support local. Then they'll be like, yo, why have I not seen this company before? They're freaking awesome. You know what I mean? So then the community's been super awesome. Like, Sacramento has been so awesome. I feel like for a lot of like niche brands like mine, or it's not even that niche, it's brands in general, like down south or other areas are very saturated. In my opinion, Sacramento is like one of the most untouched big cities. Like, I can name of a couple local brands off the top of my head, but other than like people of Sacramento, myself, Till You Collapse, like, what other brands are based out of Sacramento that support the community? You know what I mean?
Sure.
And the cool thing too is, like, when we talk about community, Local Humans is the company I partners with us, and they're like a nonprofit organization that helps promote community-based things. They have their own foundation that helps give back to people. So being able to connect with both brands, it makes it to where I can connect in different communities, like not even just my own, anything that they're connected to. So then, of course, that idea of being able to do both brands just makes sense, because now I have a nonprofit that's so community based, something that I've been missing part of my brand. And then I have my brand here that just promotes that active lifestyle, you know? So I kind of jumbled around a little bit on that, but community is such a big impact to where once I always tell myself, like, once I get going, like there's going to be more impact for the community. For example, we sponsored this thing called the See You on Sunday event, and that happened last Saturday. The whole basis of that is on Friday, we promote everything we need to promote. We talk what we need to talk, but hey, we're going to turn off our phones, we're going to turn off social media, and we'll see you on Sunday. We take Saturday off to be active, you know? So hang out with your friends at a distance, do a 5K, be active and just be healthy. Like we did a 5K last Saturday, and I've never done one before. I didn't know that was 3+ miles you had to run. Yeah. I did that. It was the worst. It was the absolute worst. But we were able to,
nice.
You know, right? We were able to raise a good amount of money through doing stuff like that. So we were able to help out our community. We had something that we were proud to promote, and then we got the community involved, and that's something that we're so focused on now too as well. Not even just clothing, just like community outreach. That without that, I don't think that BxActiv would thrive as much as we would if we didn't reach out to our community.
Yeah. And I love just everything you're saying, man. I love the emphasis on community and the importance to you. And I think the cool thing about that is obviously everything you're doing is for the community and to help build up the community. And I feel like the community's support of you also almost in a way causes you or forces you to continue to be excellent when you're putting out a new piece of clothing, right? Because you can't let them down. It's like they're counting on you for something dope. And so it's like each time you come out with something new, like that's got to be on your mind, right? Where it's like, okay, they're supporting me like this. I need to make sure I give my very best so that they're proud to wear what I'm putting out there.
Exactly. And the cool thing that makes us different from all other brands is you can get a fully custom cut and sew made straight out of China or wherever factory you want, and then made, and it is your brand, is your idea. It's so custom. Nobody can make the same thing. You know what I mean? But for us, what we do is we do the same exact cut and sew thing, except we keep everything blank. And when we get the blanks, we get them sent over here to Sacramento, and then we assemble it in Sacramento, which means I found myself a seamstress that gets to do all the sewing parts of it. So like the sew-ons on the back of the neck, the little side logos, and then I print, and a couple of my buddies print the logos ourselves. So what happens is instead of having a fully pieced product based out of China, we have everything cut and sew made and then assembled in Sacramento. So I pay the people who help me make the t-shirts. I pay the lady who does all the sew-ons, because at the end of the day, I'm creating more job opportunities for them, you know? Right. So the lady that she's freaking awesome, hardly speaks a lick of English, but she does my brand, and I just give her a bunch of other t-shirts to make, and she's so very appreciative, and it makes me feel like I never want to not just like reach out to Sacramento to have them make my stuff, you know, but like, why not? It's like, it's home, you know? Yeah. So that's why it makes it a little bit different for us, because we literally assemble everything here in Sacramento. Like, you can even go to the office and you can see where everything is like printed, embroidered. And then the only thing you wouldn't see obviously is the person who does the sew-ons, but she has her own shop. But basically everything's made in-house, and that's what we get to do, is we get to create job opportunities in Sacramento.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Talk about building around the community even more.
That's exactly.
Yeah, for sure. I do have to I want to ask this, because as a creative, like, we always look back at our previous work and we're always critical of it, right? There might be something that we just love that has lasted over time, but most of the time we look back at our previous stuff, especially our early stuff, and think, man, what was I thinking? Have there been a couple of moments where you've looked back at a design you did, it's like, dang, I wish that wasn't out there?
Oh my God, I literally have one in my brain right now. As soon as you were talking, it just flashback. Yeah. I had this skin tight muscle t-shirt with a glittery logo. Like, this used to be my, right here, I don't know if you see it or not. Oh, no, wrong arm. Yeah. This like tiki guy used to be my logo from the company. I had that logo right here for a men's t-shirt, a white cutoff, skin tight with silver glitter, and then a black one with pink glitter. And then I thought in my head, I'm like, I thought this would be so cool because it's like super shiny and stuff. And then when I saw my friends wear it because they're supporting, I'm like, God, why are you wearing that? It's terrible. And I have these flashbacks, like, I really hope that this t-shirt never shows up in like anywhere again. And if it does, I'm gonna take a picture of it because it's just so terrible. So trust me, the beginning stages, of course, but now it's like feel like we have a whole team of people that will literally say, "You're stupid for that. I cannot believe you." Sometimes I still make it, but because I like it. But I just know in my head, I will never produce something that I will cringe if somebody wears. Like after that one moment, I had to really focus and be like, okay, you can't just put anything out there anymore. Like why in the world would you put a cutoff men's muscle t-shirt in a pink glitter? Like that just makes no sense. You know? Like, why did I do that? I still think like, what was I thinking when I did that?
Yeah, that's funny. So I'm guessing that you didn't go up to that person if you saw them at the gym and say, hey, what brand is that? You just kind of let that one go.
It's like, here's a new t-shirt, throw that thing away. I got you a new one on me.
There you go. That's awesome.
When was that again?
Oh God, had to have been like 2016, 2017, early stages of prosthetics. So like I never promoted anything out like BxActiv. I had a couple of things that were like hit or miss. Like maybe the colors weren't right, but the design was fine. But then like maybe throwing a green t-shirt with like pink writing wasn't the best idea. You know what I mean? Those were the things we did when we started BxActiv, but there was never a design that I was like, oh, that's terrible. I'd never make that again. But for the previous brand, the learning experience brand, oh my God, I feel like 90% of the stuff, I was just like, why did I make that? But those two specific pieces are something that will always haunt me in my dreams. And if I see it roaming around, I'm like, I can't believe you still have this t-shirt.
But you know what? I would guarantee that there's some dude out there is like, this is the dopest shirt I own. You know what I mean? I guarantee it. Yeah, I guarantee it.
Because that's an original.
At that point, if you like it, it's on you.
Yeah.
There's no other shirt out there like that. That's for sure.
That's true. One of a kind.
Sure. And you know why? It's because it was terrible. But no, it's appreciative. It's just it's such a funny moment in anyone's life, especially as a creative. Like you probably in some point in life, what you guys have probably done something to really like, I can't believe I did that and made that, put that out there for people to have. And then your second flip side is like, I can't believe they bought it. You know what I mean? Like it's those pivotal moments that change you for sure though.
Oh, for sure. No, we've done, Deb and I together have done over 100 podcasts, and there's a good amount of those where like, I don't even know why we published that one. That one's trash. We've deleted whole episodes before.
We've deleted. I was going to say,
so awesome.
We've literally sat and recorded a whole episode, just us two, and nope, do it again. And we would sit in the same moment and record another one because we're like, that's true. We already know that's trash.
Yeah.
Or like Josh said, we would just put it out there and be like, that wasn't that good, but let's just try again next time.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, like with any podcast, like the one of the main reasons, not just because I want to do like a progression podcast, the main reason for my podcast is just to help me out with public speaking. Like I never realized how hard that was until now. What I'm doing, I'm like in front of video cameras at least once or twice a week, and I'm doing podcasts. It's like I get stunned a lot of the times, and I'm like listening to my old stuff. Even till now, it's only been like, I don't know, 5 or 6 episodes, but you could see a little bit of a progression on being able to talk. But then but the ones before, you're like, oh my goodness, like like you guys make it seem so easy. Like the way you guys are talking and flowing, it's super calm, it's perfect. You guys have like that podcast voice, and I hear myself, I'm like, this is gross. Like I can't believe I even put this out.
You know what? Well, you know what's funny about that is like I tell Josh, poor thing, he has to listen to everything because I'm like, I don't want to listen to it. I don't want to hear my voice at all.
I have to edit it, so I have no choice.
That's so funny.
I'm to it now, man. I'm like, well, that's how I sound. What can I do?
Yeah, but and like, I mean, we've been doing this for 2 years, so it's just thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know if we're the best, but we've just.
Oh, we're definitely not. But go ahead.
Yeah, you can keep singing our praises. I'm just kidding, but
hey, I like it.
Yeah. Sorry, I could talk about how great Josh and I are all day long, but I have another question.
I was going to say one thing though. I didn't tell you this, Paul. So hopefully you're okay with this. This is actually a video podcast too. So
totally fine with it.
Good.
I put my makeup on and everything. I'm totally
oh yeah, me too. And this is as good as it gets. That makes it worse too. Like our other podcast is just straight audio, and this one we decided to do, video and audio, and that makes it worse. Like I can listen to myself, looking at myself, I'm like, dang, my poor wife. This is what she's stuck with.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. So go ahead. I'm sorry, Deb. I just wanted to point that out.
Oh, I was gonna say your poor wife. What about me? I have to look at you too every time we podcast.
Yeah, but she watches the podcast. Then I live with her. It's brutal for her. So she can't.
Double whammy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Just kidding. Well, so obviously COVID pandemic, we all know this. What what has been challenging for you just about this whole past year? Have you had a ton of challenges with it, or have you been able to just kind of roll with the punches? Like, what has been the ebb and flow with the pandemic for you and your brand?
You know, if I could be completely honest with you, I hate to say it, but I think the pandemic actually helped a lot in a sense to where I may have had my physical address and people might not have been able to go to it, obviously, but people would just stay indoors and order online. They would
Mhm.
literally look for different things to support because, like, during the time, especially in like May and June, July, and all that stuff, like the support was huge of the community. You know what I mean? So it actually helped a lot to have a lot of that support. I feel like the biggest challenges for me was just like because it is a BxActiv brand, to not be able to be active was pretty hard because you can't really promote a brand if you're not being active, and it's kind of hard to be active, especially during 90% of the world was just scared at the time. You know what I mean? So then you couldn't really do anything. It had to be through Zoom or like something from really far away, or maybe that one person would be down to do a shoot or some photos, but from like so far distance, and they wouldn't not want to wear a mask. Those were like the kind of difficult things. When it comes to like social media and stuff, that was a little bit on the difficult side.
Mhm.
But everything else, just like through online sales and me being able to be creative at home and at the warehouse, it was actually pretty easy. I was very blessed to be able to be an opportunity to actually even get like a warehouse for a very reasonable price because of COVID, because nobody wanted to buy a warehouse during this time. So I'm not saying I stole it, but I was definitely able to find a place that was so affordable. So I was like, why not do this? You know what I mean? So I guess if I had to say it, like, it was almost kind of if I had a flip side of things, like it was almost kind of a blessing to be able to be in this opportunity. And I feel like I could have got a warehouse sooner if I wanted to, or I could have waited. But like I just felt so right around this time to be able to do it. It worked out very well. But
Yeah.
like I said, I wouldn't wish this pandemic on anybody or anything, but we were able to coexist and make it to where it benefited us to actually grow as a company. So it was pretty interesting.
That's awesome. Yeah. And Josh, so like, it's funny that you say that just because, like you said, this is obviously like a horrible time and it's not like we
Yeah.
want all this to be happening. But even for Josh and I, for our Combine podcast and now for Connectable, we've been able to, just because of the pandemic, we can't meet in person with guests anymore. So we've like obviously entered the world of Zoom. So now we're like, oh, this is cool. We can actually do more podcasts this way. Cause we were kind of scared, not scared, but like we were unsure of how we were tried to do Skype before the pandemic. Like we were like, let's see how Skype works, because we wanted to interview someone from Florida. I think it was was it Justin? No, Mark
Justin
Moon.
Sua.
Was it Justin Sua?
I think it was the first one. Yeah. In Florida.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so and then we were all whatever worried to try it, but the pandemic kind of forced our hand to do it this way.
Yeah.
So now we get to like you said, just kind of taking, just looking at the benefits or the bright side or however you want to put it in terms of making the most of what is happening in the world. And we've been able to podcast with people from everywhere, or do like a late night podcast like this, like, or however you put it. So that's good that your brand, you kind of just grabbed this whole situation and you're like, no, we're gonna do this, like we're not gonna panic, we're gonna try to work around it. So that's good.
Yeah, the people that weren't successful during this time wasn't because they didn't try. It's like
Right.
it's just the niche between what we do is because a lot of our stuff is online.
Right.
Even with online brands though too as well, they could totally fail if you don't push it. You know what I mean? And I know a lot of brand owners that literally just pushed it 10 times harder because of the whole pandemic, and now they're so wildly successful because of how hard they worked. You know what I mean? Like, ask anybody that does brands, if they didn't do anything about it, they would have failed. You know what I mean? But they're like, what can we do, like you said, to like go past this whole pandemic and then make it to where this can benefit us? You know what I mean? And once you find that, it was just so easy. You know what I mean? But yeah, like I said, wouldn't wish this upon anybody, but we like yourself and Josh are able to work around it to benefit.
Yeah. as best we can, right?
As best we can. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's just that flexibility and being able to pivot has kind of been the name of the game for a lot of people. And so, and I want to point out too, I think this kind of goes without saying, and if anybody's been listening to this, they can probably put two and two together. But along with everything that you just said, you also, like you said earlier, quit your job at Dutch Bros during this time. So I mean, that's just a testament to how well things are going for you, where you felt like, you know, I can kind of quit what I'm doing and what I have been doing for 9 years and then jump fully into this thing because it's doing so well. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because it's almost the reverse of a lot of people. Like a lot of people don't want to lose their job and they want to scramble. And I guess I could just be like a walking testament. It's like, hey, if you really put your like heart and soul into something that you really love, and then you just kind of make those almost like risky decisions, like, because realistically, like I'm hopping into a business that you never know what might happen, but I would much rather take that risk now, having the ability to do it, than regret it a year later, be like, man, I'm still in this job that I do love my job. I love Dutch Bros, but it's just something that wouldn't let me grow, you know what I mean? Or wouldn't help me grow, if I had to say it differently. But then this is like, you put your full effort into something you're fully passionate about. Like, just imagine the amount of work you were doing when you were splitting with your main job and then your hobby, and then turning your hobby into your real job. Now that you're invested in that, and you it's literally make or break the way you do it. Like, you can literally not do something for a month, and then it's on you where you lose money, or you can just hustle as hard as you can, and then be that person to help and see your business grow. You know what I mean? So having that opportunity, man, like it's been so crazy. Super blessed to be able to quit my day job to do something I've really loved, you know? And then now that it's a real thing, it's like, it's funny because I feel like I haven't stopped. If anything, I'm working even harder, you know what I mean? Because now I'm just so motivated, because it, like for you too, guys, as well, it's like, the more you put into it, the more it's going to grow, you know? So now that I'm fully invested in it, I'm literally pushing so much harder than I thought I ever could to grow it, you know?
Right. That's
awesome. For sure.
I've
got to say this is sorry, Deb, this is completely off topic, but if I don't say this, it's going to drive me nuts, man. You remind me of one of my cousins so much.
Dude, I get that a lot for everybody. I'm literally everyone's cousin.
You're everybody's cousin.
I'm totally cool with it. Hey, I'm trying to build a community. I might as well be the community of just being a bunch of cousins. You know what I mean? You
got family everywhere, dude. Because I thought about that earlier. I'm like, I'm not gonna say it, and then I just kept looking at you. I'm like, I gotta say it. It's gonna drive me nuts.
You have to.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I have like one of my good friends that helps me out with BxActiv. Literally looks like me. He's just like a younger version of me, like 5 or 6 years younger, but looks identical to me, same height and everything, to the point where if I have my back turned and he's working on something, my girlfriend will tap on him, be like, hey, I'm like, oh God, that's not Paul. Like that's Dylan. Like it's so funny. So I know that's completely off topic, but dude, like I took it there. I can get that. It's just so funny. That's like it's like sometimes I used to get the Pebble because I had my tattoo was only like right up to here to where it looked like the Rock. So it's just like a 5'5" rock instead of the 6'5" rock. And it was like, they called me a little Pebble.
The Pebble.
So that was hilarious.
That's awesome. Well, I imagine with your buddy looking exactly like you and your girlfriend being there, that could lead to some dicey situations potentially.
Oh my God. I hope to God. I'm actually, you know what? I kind of wish that something dicey would have happened. That'd have been hilarious. That'd have been the funniest thing. But yeah. No, it's it would
have been great for the podcast for sure.
Girlfriend.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
What if he was like here next to me? That'd have been even more funny. Like, what if I had to like take a break from the podcast and like accidentally drop my water or something like that, and him just popped up here?
He just slides in.
Awesome. Please.
There we go. So anyway, sorry, Deb. You actually have a real question, not something dumb like me. So
before you interrupted with your whole cousin nonsense, whatever.
Yeah, I think it's so funny. It was worth it.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. Go ahead, Deb.
Oh, but speaking of podcasts, so you have a podcast, your BxActiv podcast, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good, man. Really good.
Yeah. So, well, tell our listeners about that, when you started it, what you talk about, like what's going on with that.
I literally started 2 weeks ago with my, the funny thing is something happened in our warehouse where we were I was like sharing a couple rooms with another brand. And one of them happened to be doing a podcast with my co-host. My co-host does the Guest House podcast. And it happened to where like they left, and I was like, dude, I don't know what to do. And I was like, you know what? Like, I've always wanted to do a podcast. I just never knew how to do it. I want to speak better. And I also want to do a progression on how BxActiv is going. And I also want to have people that just want to live active and be active. And I was like, hey, dude, like, I'll pay for your rent if you do our podcast. And I was like, how do we make it? I was like, let's just make it the BxActiv podcast. You know what I mean? So it wasn't anything to where we had to like sit down and really, really think and brainstorm. Like I work on a whim a lot, you know, and I was like, dude, I'm a very impatient person. I was like, dude, just make the BxActiv podcast. Let's make it badass and see where it goes. I had no idea what to do. I literally walked into the podcast room. I'm like, okay, there's 2 mics here. Do I go like this? Do I go like this? Do I spit on the mic? I don't know. Yeah. And it just wound up, it was just so many, it was just so overwhelming. But it wound up making it to where we actually got some structure. And so now the BxActiv podcast is mainly focused, for example, our Wednesdays are going to be the progression. So what did BxActiv do to grow from last week? Sometimes it'll be a 5-minute or 10-minute podcast, like, dude, nothing really happened. Or the next week, we'll be like, dude, we just dropped this line, we did this, and we could promote that. And then on Fridays, we shoot for Sunday with somebody else. Like we're going to have my buddy Brian from TYC. He's going to be on for Friday to be posted on Sunday. And we just want, like for you guys, we want to have value. We want to add value to people's lives. You know, there's a bunch of podcasts that are like funny, that are a bunch of podcasts that do with sports. And I love all of those different things. Knowledge is power. But for like the ones that I really like focus and dive into are the ones that can be with real people that have real value. You know what I mean? Like dude started off with $200. Now he's making 10 million. How do you do that? I want to know. You know what I mean? A lot of people and business people in general will not tell you what to do, but show you what they did. You know what I mean? And it's really cool that we have a community that can do that. And if I can be able to have a podcast like you guys too as well, that say, hey, here's how I did it. Here's my progression with BxActiv. Like if you want to start a brand, just listen on Wednesdays of how I'm doing it. You know what I mean? You want to learn different like snippets of how to be an athlete, listen to Cody's on the Connectable or on the BxActiv podcast. You know, like there's so many avenues and we're literally like hand feeding information to people. And I just love that idea to be able to do that. So less questions, more value through podcasts. So then that's how the BxActiv podcast was born. And I thought like, why not have a podcast? Because like, there's so many things that are going to happen in 2021 that for me, I'll go back to podcast 1 and then podcast 55 or 50, wherever the heck I'm going to be in and be like, whoa, I can't believe we did all of that stuff. And then I was like, remember in podcast 3, when I talked about expanding a warehouse in 2 months and we did it in 1 week instead, you know what I mean? It's just almost like a trackable timeline of different things we've done. And then a trackable timeline of different people we have on to help at least give some insight on anybody that's curious about any specific thing, being an athlete, owning a business, doing T-shirts, you know. That's a great way of looking at it. I have never heard it described that way, but it's basically like an audio journal of your journey. Audio journal, literally, it's an audio. That's why I put it on it's a BxActiv's journal, audio journal. That's cool. Ours is nothing like a journal. Ours is like a sketch pad where you basically just write a bunch of random notes and then hope something good comes from it. That's basically what our podcast is. That adds value though. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it still adds value to people. And if it's like, you can have a podcast and be a bunch of nonsense. Like it's funny and I'll listen to it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that's cool. But for me, it's like, if I can take away from something like, and then build from it, like I love that. And it just, I'm not very smart, I guess. Book smart. I was terrible. You know what I mean? But then like there's podcasts everywhere that like I used to listen to Andy Frisella all the time. And like his podcast was my favorite because he was just so real. And now he has one called like Real AF or something like that. I don't know the full details on it, but he literally doesn't give a crap about what anybody else says, but he goes by his life experiences. And then he brings people that have life experiences. And that's not something I want to be like, but just be able to reflect on, you know? Sure. That's awesome. Right.
Well, that's the whole thing about it's all about being relatable too. Like your listeners can relate to you. And like, let's say they're also going through their business thing. And then they're like, okay, I want to listen to BxActiv and see where they are. And then they listen to your real, like you said, like, oh, well, we didn't really do anything this week, or this is what we're doing. And it makes them feel a little more like, okay, like we're okay. Like you know what I'm saying? Like it just kind of gives them the encouragement because it's relatable. That's awesome.
Yeah. We're not going to be 24/7 going. As much as I would like to do that, we're going to have some dead days. And I want people to realize that owning a business, you are going to be only sleeping 3 or 4 hours at a time. But then there are also going to be days where you're like, what do I have to do today? Like, I have nothing. This is weird. Like, enjoy those days when you own a business and you literally feel like you have nothing to do because you just maybe worked so hard, like 30 days straight. Enjoy that day with your family. Be able to do something. record a podcast about it, just talk about it, you know what I mean? And then
Sure.
video, like real, like for example, the BxActiv, just like have that timeline to where you can see like different patterns of like what you're doing. And then you can even go back and be like, hey, I talked about doing this. How come I haven't done this yet? You know what I mean? It's almost like an audio journal to help remind me, like a little schedule, because I am terrible with schedules. Like I don't even know how to do Google Calendar yet. So that's a new thing for me.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Hey, man, we don't either.
I should just call it the BxActiv journal, to be honest with you.
That's cool. And I think that's great, man. I think that like you trying to add value to people that are maybe going down that same road that you're currently on as far as starting their business, whatever it may be, right? Whether it's clothing or something completely different. I think that's awesome because, and correct me if I'm wrong, and if you've heard this from podcasts or people that you've heard speak, sometimes I feel like it's this trendy thing for these really successful people to get on podcasts or interviews and say, well, you just got to do it. That's great, but I don't know. What do you mean? Like, just do it? I would love to just do something, but I don't even know like where to begin. Like, you know what I'm saying? I feel like that becomes a trendy thing for these motivational speakers to do is like, but like what practical steps you have? So you kind of guiding people through your own journey, it gives them some ideas. And it's like, it's not going to be they're not going to be able to do a carbon copy of what you did and add it to their life because they might be doing something completely different, but at least it gives them some guidance of how they can start doing whatever they're trying to do. So I think that's cool.
Yeah. And the best thing is like to not do what I did. A lot of ways to make things valuable for people is for me to be like, dude, I just spent 20 grand on this and it doesn't look great. I just lost my money. Don't do this. You know what I mean? Then they can be like, whoa, I started a clothing company. I'm not going to do that. And then like, no, there's not a lot of podcasts or there's not a lot of businesses that tell you what not to do. Sure. They just tell you what to do or show you how they did it. But I want to be able to be relatable, to be like, hey, dude, we're all human. Like I'm still paying off my debts, a lot of debts to get where I'm at. You know what I mean? But it's funny because you're going to accumulate all this debt to hopefully make a profit. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't realize that like, oh, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to make so much money. Like in the end, if you push yourself, yes. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. That whole other part of it is like you just grinding, staying awake, having a random day where you don't know what to do, or you just are overwhelmed, or you have nothing to do. Like there's so many different factors of owning a business. So that's why I hope like being on the Connectable podcast, I hope whoever listens to this just knows like, hey, like business is like a literal roller coaster. Everybody says it, but it really is. You know what I mean? But I hope that when they listen to both our podcasts, it's like they get value through that, whether it be good advice, being like, here's what you should do. And then definitely the better advice, which is not what to do, like to not what to do this, do not do this, you know?
Right. Like don't make a pink cutoff shirt with glitter, stuff like that, right?
Oh my gosh. If you do it, it's on
Bring
you,
it
man.
back.
I already told you guys not to do it.
I say bring it back. You don't know. It's 2021 now.
You could do like a limited edition, like, hey, I have one shirt.
Yeah, one shirt, but I'm like $1,000. I don't want anybody to wear it.
Yeah. You've got
somebody
to frame
buys
it.
it. Like, oh my gosh, they really bought it. I can't believe them.
That's awesome, man. Well, hey, man, we want to be respectful of your time. We definitely, again, like we said at the beginning, we appreciate you coming on here. Something we like to do on this podcast, I'm really interested in what you're going to answer for this. We call it this connection suggestion. I'm not sure if I like that name, but that's what we call it. So basically, we want to hear from you. Obviously, we're gonna tell people where to follow you and all that stuff. But is there another person, another brand, another thing that you think that we need to be connected to as a community and as all of our listeners, you know, are taking notes right now? Who would you kind of give a shout out to as far as someone we need to follow?
Brian DeBobby. I hate that I say his name all the time, but he is so wildly successful in ways that are just parallel to what I've been doing, that I always will have such good things to tell about him, just because he literally started from $200, had to get all his cars repossessed, almost lost his house, almost lost everything because he was so focused on growing his brand. And then some pivotal moment happened in his career to, well, now he's like doing so well. You'll see him now and you'll see all his Ferraris and Audi R8s, but then you don't know from before, dude, he was just grinding, barely surviving, working 14 plus hours a day at his day job. You know what I mean? So I have to shout him out to that too as well. And if you had to go, I have two parts. Like if you had to go with another company, I always talk about Local Humans a lot. The reason why I'm connected with them is because the stuff they do in the community corresponds and relates to what I want to do in my community, that's why I'm partnering with those guys. So I guess 2 parts, hit up Brian Nabavi. It's TYC, or just Brian Nabavi on his Instagram, and then local.human. They're freaking awesome. The 2 people that started it, it's crazy. I met the co-founder 6 years ago in an LA fitness convention when we were both doing our old brands. Hadn't talked since for 5 to 6 years until 3 months ago. We wanted to collab on something. And then just about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we decided, hey, let's partner up. And then the other co-founder is actually the D lineman number 98 from the LA Chargers. So yeah, so he is part of the NFL organization. And with that connected for BxActiv, dude, it's been such a blessing. It's been so cool. So to all the followers, like, hey, you don't have to follow me, but if you have any value from like what people did to grow, like hit up those 2 people or hit up those 2 brands. They are absolutely awesome. They're wildly successful because they know their niche, they know what they need to do, and they've grinded so hard to get to where they're at right now.
That's awesome. Love it. We'll definitely follow them, and don't listen to Paul. Definitely follow Paul too. If you have an Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, follow all those guys. You can do that. So, hey man, where can they follow you? Website, podcast, clothing, all that stuff, social media.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys can find me for my personal. It's Paul_Pearcey, Pearcey. My clothing company is BxActiv, BxActiv, and you can go online to www.BxActiv.com. We have all the stuff over there. And if you want to listen to my journal, my BxActiv journal, it's literally the BxActiv, active without the E, so ACTIV podcast. And we always post on Wednesdays and Sundays.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Appreciate you guys' time. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, for sure. You guys can follow us at Instagram, Connectable Podcast, Twitter, Connectable Pod, Facebook at Connectable Podcast, and then on YouTube, Connectable Podcast. So make sure you give us a follow, give Paul a follow. And yeah, man, we definitely appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here, you guys.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching the show. If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you like it, share it, and hit the subscribe button to get a new episode every week. We'll see you next time on the Connectable Podcast.